American Fugitive by Shingo Zhang. Chapter 18 WuChang Detention Center. When Ren-Yee arrived at the detention center, his nose had stopped bleeding. He prayed to God that he would endure and survive. The police obviously knew when and where I would meet Chen Deming. How? Was I exposed to the police? Was Deming exposed? Ren-Yee had no answer. He didn't know whether he could survive torture, or whether Lin Jianhan and Lin Jianyou were safe. He prayed in order to overcome his fear. 2 policemen took Ren-Yee into a large room. There were 2 tables and a few chairs at the center of the room. Near the entrance stood 5 guards. Ren-Yee was brought to a table, where a man removed his handcuffs and gave him a detention warrant to sign. Ren-Yee saw that the charges column on the warrant read, "Theft of state secrets." Ren-Yee said, "I didn't steal state secrets." The man added the word "suspect" in the charge column. He said impatiently, "You already committed a crime when you resisted arrest. Sign it." After Ren-Yee signed the paper, the 2 policemen left. A bald guard came over. He said, "Take out everything in your pockets." Ren-Yee took out his wallet, change, cell phone, and other items in his pockets and put them on the table. 3 more detainees were brought into the room by 4 policemen. The bald man said, "Take off your clothes." Ren-Yee took off his shirt, jeans, and shoes. Only his underwear remained. The bald man barked, "Take off everything." Ren-Yee said, "I won't." The bald man turned around and gave the guards at the door a look. 3 guards came over to Ren-Yee. A tall guard stood behind Ren-Yee and put his arm around Ren-Yee's neck. Both of Ren-Yee's hands were up, and tried to pull down the policeman's arm that was choking him. Another guard took out his baton and hit Ren-Yee's forearm until Ren-Yee stopped struggling. The 3rd guard pulled off Ren-Yee's underwear. Finally, the tall man loosened his chokehold. Ren-Yee stumbled before finding his feet. The bald man said, "This is a detention center. Obey the orders here. Do you understand?" Ren-Yee knew any protest would be futile. He nodded, standing naked in the center of the room. The bald man ordered, "Turn around and go to that wall. Spread your legs apart, and put your hands on the wall." Ren-Yee was a little puzzled, but he did what he was told. As an old saying goes, a wise man does not fight when the odds are against him. The bald man ordered Ren-Yee to return to the table and put on his clothes. Ren-Yee found that the button on his jeans had been removed. His shoes and belt were also missing. He put on a pair of black shoes provided by the detention center. Following orders, Ren-Yee picked up a piece of shoelace left on the table. It had been cut to less than a meter in length. He used it to tie 2 belt loops on his jeans. Why removing the button from his jeans? To prevent him from committing suicide? Ren-Yee didn't want to be yelled at again. He kept the question to himself. The bald man asked Ren-Yee to fill out another form. After that, Ren-Yee was handcuffed and led to an interrogation room, where the only furniture were a stool, a desk, and 2 chairs. Wang Xinjiang and a young policeman sat by the desk. The young man's jobs were taking notes and making a video recording. Ren-Yee walked in and sat on the stool. Wang Xinjiang asked, "Where are Lin Jianhan and Lin Jianyou?" Ren-Yee said, "I don't know." He winced as he felt the pain in both arms. "How did you contact Lin Jianhan?" "I have no contact with him." "When was the last time you contacted him?" Ren-Yee hesitated. He knew he was going to be tortured and suffer a lot. He didn't know if he could survive it. But he knew nothing about Lin Jianhan's whereabouts. He really had nothing to say, so he decided to talk as little as possible. Ren-Yee said, 7 days ago. I went to his apartment." "What did you do?" "We chatted." "What did you chat about?" "What did we chat about that night?" "I think I said I wanted to visit Jinanshan. But I had to go to a banquet the next night. Lin Jianhan said that he and Lin Jianyou could visit Jinanshan. The split began on that day." Ren-Yee said, "We talked about Lin Biao going to Russia to treat his illness." "Anything else?" "That was it." Wang Xinjiang stood up angrily. While walking toward the door, He pointed at Ren-Yee and said, "Someone will take care of you really well." The tall guard and the bald guard walked in. They went directly to Ren-Yee. The tall man ordered Ren-Yee to stand up, and slapped Ren-Yee multiple times. Ren-Yee could hardly stand up. Although he felt sharp pain, Ren-Yee knew punishment had come and he had to endure it. Blood came out of Ren-Yee's mouth. He could not do anything because his hands were cuffed. The bald man took out a baton and hit Ren-Yee's body and legs. Ren-Yee bent over in deep pain. After the beating, Ren-Yee had bruises and scrapes all over his body. Xiao Zichang and Political Commissar Shu entered the interrogation room. They sat down by the desk. The bald man stood in front of Ren-Yee. "I will ask you again. Where is Lin Jianhan?" Without raising his head, Ren-Yee said, "I don't know." "How did you contact Lin Jianhan?" "No. I didn't contact him." The bald man punched Ren-Yee in the face. Xiao Zichang left the chair and approached Ren-Yee. Xiao said, "Don't think that because you are an American, you can ignore our laws. The term dictatorship by the proletariat, does it ring a bell?" When Xiao saw Ren-Yee, anger arose inside him from multiple sources. What angered Xiao most was the fact that Ren-Yee had seduced Luo Yanfang in such a short period of time. Recently, Yanfang often had outbursts of rebellion, which Xiao felt he had to do something to suppress it. Why has Luo Yanfang been so hostile lately? The sole reason is that Ren-Yee is backing her up behind the scenes, isn't it? If Ren-Yee were a gentleman, who am I? Xiao kicked Ren-Yee's body. Ren-Yee fell on the floor, curling up to protect himself. Xiao shouted, "Country bumpkin!" and kicked Ren-Yee again. "Old Xiao!" Political Commissar Shu tried to stop it. But Xiao kicked Ren-Yee again and again. Ren-Yee rolled around on the floor, to avoid Xiao. Shu and the bald guard held Xiao back. Xiao said angrily, "This bastard wanted to reverse Lin Biao's case. He's been making trouble in my district. Unruly rebel!" A middle-aged policeman came in. He told Xiao and Shu, "Director Lu wanted Director Xiao and the political commissar to join a meeting." Shu and the man pulled Xiao to the door. They let go only when Xiao was out of the interrogation room. The three men took an elevator to the top floor of the detention center and walked into a conference room. There were already a few people in the meeting room. A video conference was in progress. Lu Wenhui presided from a meeting room in the Wuhan bureau. Shu and Xiao sat down. Half an hour later, the two guards carried Ren-Yee to a cell with 3 metal bunk beds. They placed Ren-Yee on a lower bed. Ren-Yee's nose and mouth had stopped bleeding. There were scrapes and bruises all over his body, arms and legs. The two guards turned off the light, locked the door, and left. Lu Wenhui's video conference ended. Xiao Zichang and Political Commissar Shu returned to the WuChang branch bureau. Shu went into his office. After closing the door, he called Lu Wenhui. Lu asked, "How was it?" Shu said, "Director Xiao didn't control himself. But I immediately pulled him back." "That's good." Shu said, "I already instructed the detention center. There cannot be any incidents." "Agreed. Ren-Yee is an American citizen. If an incident occurred, that would put us in a bad position." Lu Wenhui gave new instructions to Shu over the phone. "Got it. I will do it." Early next morning, a thin policeman came to Ren-Yee's cell. The thin man found the room cold as soon as he walked in. Ren-Yee was curled up in his bed. The thin man shouted, "Get up!" 2 other prisoners were startled. But Ren-Yee did not move. The thin man touched Ren-Yee's forehead. He took out his cell phone and started a call. "Political Commissar Shu. Ren-Yee has a fever." Shu asked, "What happened?" "The room is very cold. I don't know what happened." After pausing a few seconds, Shu said, "You stay there. Report to me if there is any change." Shu immediately reported the situation to Lu Wenhui. 20 minutes later, following the order from Political Commissar Shu, a fat policeman came to Ren-Yee's cell. As soon as he entered the cell, the fat man laughed and said, "A PhD from the US is here?" Isn't it a little crowded? He yelled. Get up! Ren-Yee didn't move. He was dizzy and weak. The fat man pulled Ren-Yee from the bed and let him sit. The thin man came over and held Ren-Yee's body in place. The fat man dragged Ren-Yee's hands behind his back and was about to cuff him. His fever looks pretty bad, said the fat man, and cuffed Ren-Yee's hands in the front instead. The thin man picked up a blanket on the bed and draped it over Ren-Yee. The two men grabbed Ren-Yee's arms and pulled him out of the bed. Ren-Yee could hardly stand on his feet. The fat man said, Stand up! After a while, Ren-Yee stood. The two men, one on each side of Ren-Yee, held his arms and walked out slowly. Ren-Yee and the two men walked out of the building. He was pushed into a police van. Ren-Yee asked, Where are you going to take me? The fat man said, Jiangnan Branch Bureau. Why? There is no why. The fat man entered the van and put a blanket over Ren-Yee's shoulders. Another policeman came, carrying Ren-Yee's travel bag. He also got into the van. The van left the detention center. 20 minutes later, Wang Xinjiang walked into Xiao Zichang's office and said, Ho Ren-Yee was moved to Jiangnan Branch Bureau. Xiao Zichang was taken aback. What? The orders came from Director Liu. Xiao pounded his desk. They're treating a piece of shit like a treasure. The guy is very stubborn. Keeping him here makes no difference, Wang Xinjiang said calmly. We will take care of him later. Xiao remained angry.